Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Before we get started, please take a minute to click subscribe to my channel to keep up with all of my latest investing and personal finance content. And please visit the link you see on your screen for a message from our sponsor, The Motley Fool, where you can get the top 10 stocks to buy right now. All right, so we spend a lot of time talking about Berkshire Hathaway's stock portfolio, but we often overlook the actual businesses that it owns. Berkshire is well known for owning certain businesses, like Geico is a household name, Dairy Queen is a household name, Duracell is a household name, but they own over 60 businesses in total. So I have my friend Tyler Crow here, who has some issues with some of the businesses that Berkshire Hathaway owns. Tyler, what should Berkshire change about its operating portfolio?
Issues, it makes it sound like I'm wholly against it. It's not the case. It's just that one thing that I have noticed in its operating portfolio is that several of its wholly owned operating industries seem to be underperforming a lot of its peers in recent years. And I'm curious as to how much scrutiny they hold their operating portfolio to that to which it holds its publicly traded portfolio. Obviously you can move in and out of your publicly traded portfolio a lot easier than a wholly owned operation. But it's curious for me that in the kind of limited information that we have of its operating portfolio, some of the things that they have not performed as great. And I'm going to give a couple examples here. So one of the businesses they own is McLane. It's a food distribution business, which to give the best comp or comparable here would be if you've heard of Cisco, SYSCO, not the modem and switch company. They're the ones you always see the trucks running around. They provide food for cafeterias and food distribute restaurants, a lot of places like that. McLane is a very similar business. Over the past 5 years, revenue growth, from 2016 to 2021, in the Berkshire 10Ks, revenue growth in McLane has been about 2.7%. Compared to like a comparable in this industry, US Food, which is about over that 5 years, 28% revenue growth. It has one of the lowest margins of this industry at about 0.5%, and that's pre-tax net income margin, which is kind of the closest comparable we can use because it's a wholly owned subsidiary. We can't do like earnings per share growth or anything like that. So at that income margin of 0.5% compared to Cisco, like I mentioned, with a 1.1% margin. So we're looking at more than double the margin for some of these publicly traded companies. Similarly, their building products, such as Shaw, Johns Manville, Benjamin Moore Paints is a great example here. Revenue growth of its building products has wildly underperformed some of its comparables like Owens Corning, Sherman-Williams, companies like that. And I'm very curious to see, or very intrigued as to why the operating portfolio isn't held to that same kind of scrutiny. Like and I feel like there should be a point here with what may happen in the next several years with the Berkshire Hathaway portfolio, whether or not they'll be willing to cut ties with some of these operating companies that have not been as great a performers as some of the other ones. Geico, great performer.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Buffett has said that one of his big strategies is to find the best management teams and then not tell them how to manage. So he doesn't micromanage his companies. He'll never tell the CEO of Benjamin Moore Paints what to do. All of his companies have their own CEOs and own management teams that pretty much operate independently. None of them work at Berkshire headquarters. So it's very independent. And it's a really good point you make that, a lot of them are the same kind of investment in terms of dollars as a lot of Berkshire Hathaway's stock portfolio. So they're big pieces of the puzzle in a lot of cases. And it's interesting that they don't get a little more scrutiny to outperform their peers. Most of them were outperforming their peers before Berkshire acquired them. That's why Berkshire wanted them. Most of them were long-term outperformers. So it's really interesting that you bring that up, that maybe Berkshire should look to maybe monetize some of its operating assets at some point in the not too distant future.
Yeah, you can even do the eye test with it too. And let's just use like Dairy Queen, for example. We've fast casual, fast food restaurants. Have you had a recent experience as a consumer at a Dairy Queen where you're like, man, these guys are really knocking it out of the park, right? And to me, it's kind of indicative of what we're seeing financially with some of these companies.
Yeah, very good point. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see if that. I mean, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger aren't going to be at the helm forever. They're in their 90s. So it'll be interesting to see if the management team they have in place to succeed Warren Buffett is going to have any kind of change in strategy like that when it comes to the operating portfolio. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to click subscribe if you don't subscribe to my channel already. And as always, this video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. Be sure to visit www.fool.com/Frankel to receive the top 10 best stocks to buy now.